We've got less than 2 months to go in your AFL Fantasy season. And how's it going for you? Happy, sad, kind of both in one weekend? Regardless, here at the Coaches Panel, we want to help you. Whether it's a league focus and you're trying to raise that Premiership Cup, or you're going for a hat, winning the car, whatever is your focus, this week here at the Coaches Panel, we got you set with my top 10 trade targets to hopefully help you separate from the pack, get a great matchup, and ultimately get to that outcome you're looking for. Let's jump straight in. My number one trade target this week, Zak Butters. I'm playing the matchups here for you a little bit, not just for this week where they've got the West Coast Eagles and they are gifting points as the season goes on. Them and Richmond are just stumbling to the finish line in a number of different areas. And I love this matchup for Zak Butters. I don't see a great person that can shut him down. 3 of his last 5 games, 100+ scores. And we haven't seen him yet have a monster. And the reason I like this game isn't just because of how favourable it is from a DVP perspective for mids versus the Eagles, is from a Port Adelaide perspective, if they are any chance of cracking finals, not only is a victory in this matchup vital, but they also need that percentage boost. It is super tight and a log jam pretty much really from second all the way down to about 10th. So percentage is going to matter. And when you get an easy kill matchup like this, which they have to absolutely drive the knife in and get themselves that 50, 60, 70, 80 point victory. So I love this matchup because I feel like there's 120, 130 points on offer here for Butters, but it's not just a 1 week play. There is a premium mid that I'm saying is a 1 week play in my top 10, but Zak's got a great matchup this week. And then in the final 2 games of the year, if the DVP trend holds over the next 6 weeks, it's an awesome 1-2 punch to end the year. They've got Carlton, who are one of the easiest inside midfielder teams to score against running around at the moment. And then they've got the Gold Coast Suns to wrap up the year. These are great matchups. 3 of their final 7 are outstanding, and it starts this week. I'm a big fan of Zak Butters. I love that he's got a ceiling, 130, 140, 150 capacity within him, and it wouldn't shock me if he could get it this week. Go and get your hands on Zak Butters, and his price point is still very attainable, and you're not breaking the bank. My number 2 trade target is someone we put in last week, but we've moved him up a little bit higher now that he's dropped out some of that cash that he was holding with a pretty high break even that he rolled into last week. But I love this player. He's one of my favorite players to own, and I think you'll want your hands on him too. One of the best kicks in the competition, and for a premium of his potential output, at least over the last couple of years and the last few weeks, to be fair, you want him. My number 2 trade target, Errol Gulden. He's the premium that everybody wants that nobody has. Now, this percentage of ownership may change drastically as the round moves on. Can see a lot of people wanting to get their hands on him. And this, while a good week to get him, isn't the optimum spot. There's the potential of a Marcus Windhager run with role this week. Now, it could go to him, could go to Warner, it could go to Heaney. So there's a lot of potentials that it might really land. But in the final 6 weeks of the year, inside mids for Sydney have probably the best matchup of all inside mids in AFL Fantasy for the rest of the year. They've got North Melbourne, they've got Essendon, they've got West Coast. It is a dream run. So you don't have to jump this week again. There is a small flag of a tag. I personally think Windy's probably more likely to go to Heaney for what it's worth, but Errol's damage by foot cannot be understated. Regardless, at some point, let's be honest, in the final 6 weeks of the year, I do want my hands on Errol. The run is so good. The volume of what he can be is so strong. And again, still really, really cheap compared to what really we know he can be, which is a 110 midfielder from now to the end of the year. He sits in that spot. My number 3 trade target, a guy I actually jumped into in AFL Fantasy last week. It was a little bit of a risk profile move, and it paid off for me. It could pay off for you this week. Again, like Errol, the matchup might not scream perfect, but sometimes you've just got to take the risk and go a week early because the end of it lands beautifully. My number 3 trade target is Jackson Macrae. Coming off the back of a 123 last week. It was a tough matchup on paper and on DVP, and this week's matchup is not exactly awesome either. But their final 5 weeks is outstanding. Again, much like the Swans, if you're looking to go, okay, who's got multiple games over your league finals period or those final 4 or 5 rounds where ranking little 50 and 60 point ups and 20 and 30 point upgrades that you can get could almost be the difference between winning the car, getting yourself the hat. Macrae and the inside midfield Saints run is outstanding. He did it in a different way last week. It wasn't 35 plus possessions, rather it was a baseline of 10 tackles that got him to such a strong score, and it's really helped coaches. I like Jackson in this spot again, in a nice cheap price point in contrast to what I think he's going to deliver over these next 7 weeks. You could wait the other week to be able to get into the dream run, but there was a risk profile jumping into him last week. Coaches that did it got a little bit of reward. I'm happy to put him high in my top 10 trade targets. The real gravy is coming, but if he can jag another similar type of score build, maybe not this type of score, we'll take a 123 again, wouldn't we? But the score build, where sort of 30 to 40 points is built through tackles and defensive work rate, and then let alone the free kicks and the disposals that come off the back of that. All of a sudden, it's a 50 to 55 point baseline without even having to win possession of the ball or get a mark. I like Jackson Macrae in this spot. I think he's going to be one of the best forwards for us for the rest of the year. Jump in to Jackson Macrae. My number 4 trade target. Don't worry, I'll get you to a rookie soon enough. And I use that term loosely, but I want to give you another guy that is still sitting in the places of value. Colby McKercher is my number 4 trade target. Since coming off the bye, he's averaging 100. Outstanding move for anyone that jumped into him, arguably potentially a little bit blind, coming into that first off the bye matchup in round 13. Since then, he's been outstanding for us. It is such a good run for his positional role over the next couple of weeks, where they've got Melbourne, Sydney and Geelong. So a great 3 weeks to come. He's priced still in the places of value. If you're looking at him as again, 100 of what he's done over the last 5, you believe he can do that for the final 7 rounds of the year. He's sitting in an unbelievable spot right now. Still a value D6 at this sort of $800,000 price point. A lot of people, understandably so, are trying to get their hands into an Ash, or trying to get their hands into a Wanganeen Millerer, who's been amazing, but I don't love the matchup this week. For what it's worth, I really don't like the matchup. Massive tag coming when you have a 42-plus possession game, and then you come up against the quality of tagging that his opposition hold this week. Not too sure, and it's why you won't see him in my top 10 trade targets this week. But again, back to McKercher. If you're looking for a little bit of value, I wouldn't say he's on the unique side in terms of a lot of coaches have jumped into him over the last month or so, but still great value, delivering well, and I'm pretty happy to encourage you to get your hands on him. Then to wrap up my top 5 trade targets, Alex Tyru. Yes, Cal Toomey's Flying Viking sits in the spot. He's not cheap. And to be fair, at no point in the season has he really been cheap, but he's going to do a couple of things for us that arguably even more so than the value of the money he makes for you, although he will make you some cash, is a couple of things he does for you. Now, looking at the last 3 games that he's played, let's call him a low 50s performer. That's rounding up some, rounding down some games. So he's a 51, 52 sort of average sort of player. Better probably suited to the other format that we don't want to talk about on this video, although that trade target episode is coming for in a few days' time. But what I love about Tyru is where St Kilda's list build is at the moment, is they're just going to give him every single opportunity to play. He missed a big chunk of the front half of the year with injury, and now over these handful of games, he's looked outstanding defensively. If only there were points for spoils, right? Again, the other game give us that advantage. But here's why I like Alex as an option for you. Number 1 is sitting at this price point, it's pretty hard to have somebody that you feel confident over the next 6-7 games is going to play every single week. Just ask Matt Roberts owners or Whitfield owners or somebody that got stuck this week with no playing depth coverage or no avenue to be able to play some loopage. Tyru at least gives you that option at his price point, a guy that, barring injury or suspension, I've got him playing every single week for the rest of the year for the Saints. And I can actually see him dropping some 70s if a few variables land his way, given how favourable St Kilda's run to end the year is for some general defensive role. I think that's possible. So that's one of the things, his price point versus his job security and the fact that he's sort of a pretty handy 50s, I think you'd take. The second variable that's really quite handy is the fact that he's got dual position status. And basically between the combinations of him and also Tom McCarthy, you can pretty much cover every line except your rucks. And so at no point am I saying Tyru should be someone on the field. Of course not. You should be heading for at least a player of McKercher or Mills ilk at your D6 spot. But with a McKercher, a McCarthy and a Tyru, you have your defensive, your forward, and your midfield lines covered. You've now all of a sudden you've got the ability to move Nick Martin forward or back should you need it. You've got the ability to move. Now Sheasel can come into the mids. Now Dacos of the Josh variety can jump up there. Now I can move a Bailey Smith or a Jackson Macrae up here. And now you can start looping in almost every available line except the ruck division. So outside of job security, decent scoring based on his price point, is the fact that this opens up a bunch of different variables so that you can now maximize matchups, really prioritize trade cadence. And should you, like this week, get stuck with a Bailey Smith late out with some flexibility of positions and players in your side, all of a sudden you might be able to optimize the best scoring depth coverage. You might not be able to get a premium upgrade, but you might be able to activate the best line of coverage. So for me, that's why he sits in that spot. So my top 5, Butters, Gulden, Macrae, McKercher, and the Flying Viking Tyru. Ready for my next one? All right, let's jump in. I did not expect this guy's price point and name to ever align this year, but a number of different, an injury at first and then a couple of red vests have put him in that spot. Still pretty happy to get my hands on Jason Horne-Francis. He's my number 6 trade target. Like his teammate in Zak Butters, who's my number 1 trade target. It's got a great matchup this week, and he's then got those great 2 matchups towards the end of the year. Again, Port Adelaide over these next probably month, chips all in on trying to get Ken Hinkley one last finals push. And while outside of this week and then the final 2 games of the year, I wouldn't say anything are guaranteed victories for them or guaranteed great inside midfield matchups on a DVP sense. We know that Jason is a big game performer, and there's some big games over the next month, including a showdown, which really DVP goes out the window in those types of games. Anything can happen, and it probably will. But there's a few things I like about the Hornet in this spot. One is we know historically he doesn't have a massive ceiling, but we know he's got a ceiling about him. And even over the last couple of weeks, we've seen these points per minute moments where without outstanding centre bounce numbers, he's scoring well, he's delivering well, he's doing awesome stuff for us. But again, he's got a great matchup for us this week, and he actually kind of creates this trade option for you as a coach, should you wish to go there, where you don't have to go all the way down to get a Tyru, or you're not looking for a Taj Houghton to make his debut this week, but it sounds like he'd be the type of guy that we'd normally go to, or who's the 230k that no one's heard about that we're going to throw the position and go Stevens from Geelong. We want our hands on whomever it is. What you can do is you can take a Sam Darcy if you're a little bit nervous that basically 3/4 of his points last week came in the final quarter, or an Isaac Rankin owner, where you go, man, for 50, 60, 70-ish K, depending on the player you're looking at in your forward line, man, I can drop it down to a Horne-Francis, get a comparable performance, and now that 50, 60, 70 odd K, well, I can put that on top of my Ned Long, and I can go and get my Zak Butters, or I can go and get, if you've got a little bit of salary cap set aside, your Errol or your Macrae, or I can all of a sudden, maybe you're not happy with Mills at D6 for whatever reason. You might be like, I can go and get up to McCurch. So that's where you can do a micro downgrade, but really have a comparable scoring option, and with a great matchup this week. So I'm happy to put the Hornet in that spot. My number 7 trade target, he featured last week. I'm bringing him back again. He gave us another ton. He's been an outstanding selection at pretty much any match point this year. But my number 7 trade target, Locky Ash. It was a good matchup last week. I think coaches that jumped into him would have been hoping a little bit more, but it's always rough to be disappointed when you get a ton. But that's certainly what he gave owners, was a ton. But the next 3 weeks are exceptionally good. This is in a great run of form for that sort of halfback, playmaker, transition, designated kick-in type of players. It's a really good matchup. Geelong now coming up, Essendon and Sydney. All of these are great matchups. And while we've seen teams like Geelong and Sydney tag, you're never shutting down an Ash when you've got the likes of a Callaghan or a Whitfield or even a Tom Green, to, again, a different type of player. But when you've got these types of players, you're not going to lock down an Ash. So if a Whitfield type or a Callaghan type who do get a chunk of ball through transition get shut down, okay, well, all of a sudden it creates space and opportunity and market share for a player of Locky Ash's capacity. Basically, from now up until the end of round 23, it's either green or neutral matchups for Locky. Like, there's really only one tough matchup in round 24. And by then, it's an easy 1 week play. All right, who's got the best DVP? He's over that $1 million marker range for you, probably, or has been for a long part of the year now. He may still will be around that spot in 6 weeks' time. All of a sudden, who's the guy that's going to pop in that final round of the year? Go and get him. Plain and simple. My number 8 trade target is a guy that just haven't put him in my trade targets, I think, all year. But I want to put him on the agenda because of the uniqueness of what he is and his scoring consistency. Now, he hasn't had any massive ceiling games. That's not fair. He's had a 150 plus score and a 140. So it's not like he's lacking the ability to give you ceiling, but nothing about his team's DVP screams pick me now. But I want to put him on the radar for you because I feel like he's getting disrespected. I've probably done that by not even putting him in the trade targets, but let's talk about Hugh McCluggage. He's my number 8 trade target this week. He's currently in the top 10 for total points overall, and just 3% of the AFL fantasy community own him. Criminally low owned for a guy of his scoring capacity. And again, when you've got a Lachie Neale in the side, a Zach Bailey in the side, a Will Ashcroft in the side, he just finds a way to just go about it. And he's doing it in different ways in different matches. Sometimes he's scoring heavily through stoppage, other times and other games heavily through transition, still finding ways to impact the goal. Like, he's just not dishing up a bad score. Like, we've got one score under 89 since round 2. Have you been annoyed by a premium midfielder dishing you up a rubbish score like a Josh Dunkley last round? Just as an illustration, an Adam Chera the fortnight earlier, a Bontempelli a fortnight earlier. Most of our premiums have given us a 50s, a 60s, a 70. Well, Hugh's not done anything like that since round 2. And so he's got a high-scoring basement about him. His ceiling, he's got 140 and 150 plus scores already this year. And while the DVP isn't saying, yes, he's got these 2 great matchups here and they run consecutive, and it's a bit of ebb and flow. There's nothing amazing. There's nothing shocking about it over a 7-week sample size. But he's just so unique, and he finds a way to score against every opponent in different ways and capacities. And so again, at this point in the year, you are looking for something to separate you from the pack. And with so many people hunting DVP matchups, which is absolutely the right and appropriate thing to do, some coaches need to go, I need a place of separation in my league or in my overarching rankings drive. Who's the best scorer I can get if money's not an option? Who's the best scorer that basically no one has? Top 10 overall and 3% ownership. The suitcase. Put him in there. He's not going to hurt you. He's been outstanding this year. And if he can pop one of those 140s, 150s while he's unique, away you go. Like, for example, Bont drops a 130 for us last week. Most of us have it. It doesn't matter. And Nick Dacos drops a nice big score for us last week. Okay, it's not moving the needle because of such a core volume of coaches already have him. Whereas with Suitcase, that's not the case. So he drops a 150. It's going to move the needle against your league opponent or against the majority of the top coaches. My number 9 trade target this week. Let's give you another downgrade option. I don't love his job security, but he's shown scoring potential in the role. Rowan Steele. Yeah, the Collingwood kid had a great debut on the wing. Just runs all day. I love his ability to do the selfless team work. It was incredible to be able to just see this guy's ability to position himself and put himself into space that people just aren't willing to, often as first gamers. His work rate and his speed is exceptional. The Pies, unfortunately for non-Collingwood supporters, the Pies have another really good one as this kind of getting rid of the old brigade will come in the next year or two. Rowan looks like a guy that'll just slide beautifully there. Now, he got his opportunity due to illness and some changes in the side, so I don't expect him to get many games of opportunity. Potentially might not even get named this week, unfortunately. But if he gets named, he's not someone that's on your field. Politely, it's probably not even someone you should need as your M9 coverage. But if you're just trying to access some cash off that M9 spot, or the M10 spot, rather, should I say, and just find a way to keep money moving. Because if you haven't realised it already yet, if you want to get up to the Guldens, you want to get up to the Butters, you want to get up to Macrae, let alone a Nazai Wanganeen Merrett types, or whoever it is that's at the top end of the tree, the Zorkos, the Ash, whatever it is, if you don't have them, you've got to get that cash off somewhere. I'm not a huge fan of skimping at F6, although there's not great F6s, or skimping at D6 or skimping at M8 if I don't have to. I want the best of the best of the best right now. And so still keeping that bench hygiene and cash generation going on the side is there. Look, I'm just putting it out there. There is a world he doesn't get picked, and that's more just unfortunate with others returning. But with Collingwood 2 and a bit games ahead of everybody else at the moment, it wouldn't surprise me if the Pies start to rest and manage some of their older guys to get them cherry ripe for the back half of the year, with finals now really under 2 months away. So there is a world where he can get 2 or 3 games in the team for the rest of the year. He played his role. He looked excellent. I'm putting him as my number 9 trade target. And then the last one, I think I had him at 10 last week. I'm putting him there again. Who is it? Zak Merrett. We put the flag out there last week and said that if he's back in the mids, it's an absolute value buy. And for coaches that jumped on, you got absolutely given a great scoring return. Now, the optimum time was last week. You still can get him this week because he's basically the same price with him hitting his break even. He's basically the same price of what he was a week ago. The difference is he doesn't have the back-to-back awesome matchups. He's still got the Tigers this week, which is a great matchup. He had, I think it was an 81% centre bounce attendance last week against the Suns. So he's back in that role. But the reason he was better last week and this week, like I said, is you've got 2 gravy matchups behind each other. This week, you've only got the one. But at over that 900K price point, under 950K, it's hard to get guys that have 140, 150 ceiling about them. And Zak's got it. So Tigers this week, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a similar type of score. But here's the problem now, and it's why he's not any higher in the top 10, is after this week, he goes straight into GWS. That is a Toby Bedford tag all day long. And he's had a pretty good history on Zak, for what it's to be said. Then goes straight into the Bulldogs. And while I don't think they'll run a tight tag or anything like that with him, they are one of the harder teams to score against for inside midfielders. And then straight after that, he's got James Jordan. Now, there's been some games where he's got a hold of James, others that James has got a hold of him. But there's a bunch of different tag options that are coming then in the final month that just mean, while it's not quite a 1 week play, it's pretty close now to a 1 week play. And so the optimum time was last week. You can still hit it one more time this week. And if the rest of your team's in pretty reasonable shape, like are you running a Mills at D6, I think that's fine. An Ash at D6 or a Sinclair at D6, I think these are fine. But if you're happy to do just these 1 week chase, that then again, maybe you go on Merrett this week and then all of a sudden it's your pathway into an Errol in a week's time after that. Again, you want to avoid the windy tag. Awesome. That could be the way it gets there and make yourself some money on the way. This is what we've got in these last 7 weeks is, while I'm never a huge fan of a 1 week planned trade and pivot, if it pays off for you, it could be huge. So those are my top 10 trade targets for you this week in AFL Fantasy. But here's the deal. If I named one of the players you're planning to trade into this week, you have to like the video. So go on over, like the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, friend, what are you doing? Every single day there is no football on, we are dropping a video for you to help you with your AFL fantasy side. The strategy session out on a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, the Supercoach trade targets all sit there for you. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do so. And by the way, we're also available as an audio podcast, so you can also subscribe over there. Also, inside the description of this episode is where you can get in touch with us across social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X. We are there. And you can subscribe and become a part of our Patreon. One, just as a way to say thank you for all the content we've given you. I think pretty much every single day there hasn't been footy since January 1st. Unbelievable amount of content we've been giving you. So even if it's just a small thank you for the support we've given you this year, we greatly appreciate it. Or the fact that if you jump into the premium tiers or the breakout tiers, you get some bonus additional content. What a great thing to do. We'd encourage you to become part of the Patreon, because also there's some great off-season content to come. Yep, we're starting to turn the corner towards finals and then some off-season draft and keeper league-related content. Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the top 10 trade targets episode this week. I can't wait to be back with you next week and help you with the trades you need to make in your AFL fantasy side.